Okay, have you ever noticed something kind of strange? Your period shows up every 28 days like clockwork, but your best friend's comes every 24. Your coworkers is more like 32 days. Some women bleed for 3 days, others for a full week. And honestly, even your own cycle isn't always the same month to month. So what's going on here? Is something wrong with you? Not necessarily. Here's the truth nobody really tells you. There's no single, correct, menstrual cycle that every woman is supposed to have. And once you understand what's actually running the show behind the scenes, your period starts making a lot more sense. Let's clear up one of the biggest myths out there. You've probably heard that a normal cycle is exactly 28 days. But that number? It's just an average, not a rule. A menstrual cycle can naturally be shorter, longer, or just different, depending on the woman. That's because your cycle is controlled by this really intricate back and forth between your brain, your ovaries, and your hormones. And since every woman's body runs a little differently, the timing of that whole system varies too. Think of it like a monthly orchestra. Your brain sends out the first signal. Your ovaries respond. Hormones rise and fall in a specific rhythm. Your uterus starts preparing, just in case there's a pregnancy. And if there isn't, that lining sheds, and that's your period. Even a tiny shift in that hormonal timing can change exactly when your period shows up. Two hormones do most of the heavy lifting here, estrogen and progesterone. In the first half of your cycle, estrogen rises as an egg develops inside the ovary. Then, around ovulation, a hormonal signal kicks in to trigger the egg's release. After that, progesterone takes over and rises. And if pregnancy doesn't happen, both hormones eventually drop, and that drop is what triggers your period. So here's the thing. When someone says, "My period came early," or "My period is late," the period itself usually isn't the actual issue. More often, it's that ovulation shifted, and that one shift moves the whole cycle around it. Now, this one's something a lot of women have lived through without realizing why. Ever notice that during a really stressful month, your period just doesn't show up on time? That happens because your reproductive hormones are directly wired to signals coming from your brain. When your body is under serious stress, that hormonal signaling gets thrown off, which can delay ovulation, or just make your whole cycle look different than usual. So a calm month and a chaotic month can genuinely produce two different looking periods. If your cycle shifts after a breakup, a big move, a rough sleep stretch, or just a hard season of life, your body isn't malfunctioning. It's responding. Your cycle is also tied to your overall energy balance. Basically, how much fuel your body actually has to work with. Big swings in body weight, restrictive dieting, undereating, or suddenly ramping up intense exercise can all mess with your reproductive hormones. That doesn't mean you need a perfect diet to have a healthy period. It just means your body needs enough energy and nutrients to keep the whole system running. That's why crash diets or a sudden jump in training intensity can make periods irregular or sometimes stop them altogether. And on the flip side, certain health conditions tied to weight changes can affect your cycle too. At the end of the day, your body is constantly trying to balance energy, hormones, and reproduction all at once. Your cycle also isn't static across your life, it evolves with you. When periods first start during puberty, they're often irregular for a while, simply because the reproductive system is still maturing. Later on, things tend to settle into a more predictable rhythm. Then, as perimenopause approaches, that predictability starts to loosen up again. Periods might get closer together, further apart, lighter, or heavier. So comparing your cycle to someone at a totally different life stage? That's not really a fair comparison. Your body is on its own timeline. Here's a factor people often forget entirely: genetics. A lot of your menstrual pattern is just written into your biology and family history. Some women are naturally wired for shorter cycles, others for longer ones. Some deal with intense PMS, others barely notice symptoms at all. Even sisters, who share a huge chunk of DNA, can have completely different experiences with their periods. That's because your cycle was never controlled by just one thing. It's genes, hormones, age, stress, sleep, nutrition, activity level, and overall health, all working together at the same time. Here's the part that confuses people even more. Why does your own cycle shift from one month to the next? Because your body isn't a machine running on a fixed timer. A cycle might be 27 days one month, 30 the next. And that's completely normal, small variation is expected. But if your period suddenly looks nothing like your usual pattern, that's worth paying attention to. If it becomes consistently irregular, unusually heavy, really painful, or just disappears for months with no clear reason, that's a good moment to talk to a doctor. Things like PCOS, thyroid issues, certain medications, or pregnancy can all be behind that kind of change. So don't panic over one weird cycle. But don't ignore a pattern that keeps repeating either. Honestly, one of the biggest mistakes is comparing your cycle to someone else's. Your friend says, "Mine's exactly 28 days, every time." And suddenly you're wondering what's wrong with yours. But here's the thing, your body was never supposed to copy hers. A healthy cycle isn't about matching someone else's calendar. It's about knowing your own normal. So track when your period starts. Notice how long it actually lasts. Pay attention to how your symptoms shift over time. That gives you a far better baseline than anything you'd get from comparing notes with another woman. So why is every woman's cycle different? Because every woman's body is running its own unique mix of hormones, genetics, age, stress, nutrition, activity level, and life stage. Your period doesn't have to match your sister's. It doesn't have to match your friends'. And no, it doesn't have to land on exactly 28 days. What actually matters is understanding your own rhythm and noticing when something genuinely changes. Your period isn't just a monthly inconvenience. It's actually useful information about what's happening inside your body. So if you really want to understand yourself better, start tracking your cycle instead of comparing it to someone else's. Now tell me in the comments, is your cycle usually pretty regular, or does it change up on you month to month? And if you know a woman who needs to hear this, send it her way.